Welcome back to the Merriment Making Podcast. Today we are going to talk about positive psychology and whether or not it is or isn't bullshit. Let's talk about it. So, first I want to say that the fact that I am even discussing whether or not positive psychology is bullshit or can be dangerous is hopefully comforting because I'm allowing us to play devil's advocate and come to this from a place of neutrality. I love playing devil's advocate. I love learning things. As much as I love to be right, also really enjoy being proven wrong because that means that enough facts have been presented to me where I feel comfortable changing my mind, and I love to change my mind. I loved changing my mind. I really, really do. I love watching a documentary or talking to somebody that I feel is really intelligent, or or is well researched, or I'm reading a book or doing my own research, and I'm like, oh my God, I was wrong about this. Or enough facts have been collected where, you're just like, oh, this is wrong. And whether or not that is something in the personal development realm or political or just about yourself, I want you to feel empowered to change your beliefs. You don't have to be so steadfast or stubborn about anything. If I was coming to the topic of positive psychology from a toxically positive place, I would not even be asking whether or not it was dangerous or toxic or a good or a good not thing, a bad thing, because I would just say, no, of course it's good. Of course it's good. I want to always ask why. I always ask why. I question everything. And do I have an opinion? Yeah, because having an opinion is hot. I love to care. And sometimes my opinion will change, but it comes to a point of change out of caring even more. So I want to explore these questions about positive psychology out of the research that I have done and the things that I have experienced and seen, and share them with you today. So can positive psychology be dangerous? I mean, yeah, anything can. Anything that's done weird or wrong can absolutely be dangerous for you. I have done many things that have been dangerous for me in a positive way. And I think we all have, honestly. I mean, I've used gratitude practices to not touch in with my real feelings, right? And it doesn't need to be even like a personal development gratitude practice. That's just a really easy example. What else is something that feels good to you that you have done to not, really feel who you are or be who you are or expand your potential? There's so many examples. Addiction is a humongous spectrum, and the difference of what is and isn't acceptable. Anything can be heroin. That's the thing. Anything can be addictive. And some things are just accepted and more socially accepted as a norm. We allow things to be like, caffeine or cigarettes or alcohol. Like that's a really easy example of addiction, but also like relationships. I've been in relationships that feel good in one way, but it's like, oh, this is like codependent. This is addiction. This is a fiery kind of passion, but it's not ease. It's not comfort. There's something different here. And this is also preventing me from doing my work, doing my creativity, being who I want to be. And I will choose that instead because it's a roadblock, So I guess positive stuff can keep us from ourselves as much as quote unquote negative stuff. That's the point, is that we can use tote bag inspiration kind of stuff, like we can turn yoga or something that you can widely regard as positive because it has a lot of healthy benefits like a green juice addiction or yoga addiction or gratitude practice. And we can say like, oh, well, that is really healthy. There's nothing wrong with being addicted to lifting weights or stretching or writing in a gratitude journal. But it's like, it kind of is if you are forgetting who you are. You know, the point, I think, of being, well, one of the points of being alive is discovery and exploration and learning more and more and more about who it is that you are. And these layers come off really just to get back to who you were at the beginning as a kid. So if you're using things to distract you, whether or not they are quote unquote healthy and have additional benefits of longevity, like, does it matter if you're living longer if you don't know who you are in the process? I don't know. So yeah, can positive psychology be dangerous if you're using all of these tools of connection? You can connect to the wrong people. You can connect to people who are enabling your addiction. You can go after achievements that have nothing to do with what it is that you care about. You can waste time, and you can use all these things that will really block you from what it is that you want to be. I guess that's where I want to start, is just that any positive practice can be heroin, and it can all be addictive. Can only focusing on the positive be a bad thing? Yeah, in the same way that if you're in denial of something, in denial of your version of reality, but also in that same vein, like, if you know who you are and what it is that you want, when we talk about creating your reality, you'll know exactly where you want to go and how you want to get there. I think a lot of times we don't have any real idea of what we do want, we just know what we don't want. You know? And that is a lot of times the people that are attacking or criticizing positive psychology are vastly negative people. And they can only really see the fact that things might be working for people who are practicing positive psychology and they are miserable. So it's really difficult to see why the practices of positive psychology might feel like they're working for someone else and not for them. You know, I'll see somebody say something like, well, why does that work for them and not for me? And I mean, the beginning answer is truly the mindset right there. Like, that belief in that moment of that works for someone else and not for me is the original answer right there. That's the starting point, is your belief says that you are unworthy in that moment. I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, or I am in this moment. So let me pause and come back. So I think one of the biggest fears with positive psychology is that we are negating reality. We're negating negative situations. And by looking at the positive, we are in delusion. We're in this delusioned state of the absence of problems. And by reframing negative situations, we are lying to ourselves, we are lying to the world, and we are not being so as helpful as we could be, as true as we can be. We're lying, we're liars, we're unaligned, and we're using terms like aligned, and that can be really, really frustrating. And I get that, I really do. It can be really weird to hear words like aligned when you see someone using a positive affirmation of like something that hasn't happened yet. That can feel really weird. Like, I have a thing on my wall that says, I am making $100,000 a month and I'm so grateful. Like, that's not true at all. And then I say things like, I want to be aligned. I am aligned. And it's like, well, how can you say that, Mary? How can you say that you're aligned when you have a lie on your wall? And that's a really fair question to somebody who's living a life of, and this sounds really mean and nasty, I think, if you don't get it. So I'm trying to break this down in a practical, pragmatic way that makes sense. And also, there's some things that you won't get unless you open your mind a little bit. So I really need you in this moment to try to be open-minded a little bit. The open-minded person you say that you are. This is about tangibility meeting the theory, okay? So you say you're open-minded, so play the part right now. So affirmations only work when they're lies, okay? If I am trying to quote-unquote affirm something, if I say, my name is Mary, that's just a statement. I can't really bring something, when people say about like manifesting, when you're trying to bring something into your reality, you can't really manifest something new if it already exists. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? If I want to manifest something new, like making $100,000 a month, that's a crazy big goal. So I have to start believing that that's possible for me. But if I start saying that the amount of money that I already make, that's just a statement of fact. So affirmations are lies on paper. They are 100% lies. And they're also delusional. They have to be a little delusional, the same way that like when someone starts to be an actor and they move to Hollywood, you have to be delusional, to begin. You really, really do, because you have to have this blind faith in yourself that it's going to work. There's I mean, how many interviews have you seen with somebody who's famous and you're like, how did you not give up in the beginning? And they're just like, I believed I was going to do it. I believed it was going to happen. And that's worthiness. That is blind delusion worthiness. And telling yourself every day, even if you're eating beans out of a can that were 88 cents and you're making it last over 3 meals, that you're rich in your mind. So that's kind of a little peek into the understanding of the mindset and the purposeful, deliberate cognitive dissonance of affirmations and manifesting. I know that's a little bit of a side note tangent, but I think it's important to understand for mindset framing, negative situations being reframed, and positive psychology as well. Now, I want to talk about this lying as it relates to negative situations and the world, because I think this is what really trips people up. And I don't want this to be the thing that stops you from practicing positive psychology and feeling good for yourself. So a really good example is the news, okay? Now remember that news is things that happen in the world that are documented and reported on. They're shared. Anything can be news. I like to focus on good news. Does that mean that I am unaware of the things that are happening in the world? I'm unaware of some of the things. We are all unaware of some of the things. I'm going to share something that happened this past week. I was a part of the Baltimore Mayor's Day Christmas parade, and we walked about a mile, and then we got to the avenue. It's like the main strip in Baltimore, well, in one of the neighborhoods in Baltimore in Hamden. And there were like 100 different sections of the parade, and it was all just spreading cheer and fun and, just an interesting event to put on. And there was a section of the crowd that was actively protesting. They were protesting to simultaneously free the Gaza Strip and simultaneously angry that we were putting on a Christmas parade when people were suffering. One, I want to say how beautiful I thought it was that no one was in conflict with that protest, that everyone, like people were sitting around them, people were sitting across the street from them, everyone was an audience participant around them, and no one was yelling or angry, and everyone who was participating in the float, as a float or as part of the parade, just kind of like walked past and waved and smiled at them, and there was no anger. And I thought that was really beautiful. It was just kind of like, you get to protest as much as we get to have a parade. And I thought that was like the epitome and example of coexistence. And no matter how you feel about their feelings, their political stance, I thought it was really interesting about the idea of us not being able to have a parade because other people are suffering, because I disagree with that so deeply, because that's like saying because someone died, we can't have babies being born. It's the circle of life. Like, I will not stop celebrating life because something else is suffering. I just won't do that. That's literally my job, in fact. Other people have different purposes. I understand that. And some people are deeply motivated and deeply driven to help in much more political activist ways. And I support that so fully and deeply. I support everyone's purpose. And in that vein, I think that it is really weird to come to a place and say, don't do this, do something else, when you are not doing it yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, meaning maybe those people could have been using the 3 hours that they spent yelling and letting us know that what we were doing was wrong to organize a fundraiser for the Gaza Strip, or to send food, or to fly there. You know what I mean? Like, is what you're doing to let us know that we are such bad people the best use of your time? And we can do this with something that's not as political if this is charging you. For example, I sent, this one's going to be religious crap, but it's still art, so hold on. So I sent a picture to my mom of me holding up a sign on the side of the road that said, honk if you believe in Santa. And she wrote back, instead of just, saying cute or a heart or something, she wrote back, Jesus comes before Santa. And I was like, ugh, this feels like I sent you a picture of a boat and you said, why isn't this a picture of a sandwich? And my point is that with positive psychology, it's kind of just like, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. That's kind of the message of positive psychology. It's like, no, it's not that I can't, it's that how can I? That's what positive psychology is. I think people get mixed up about the toxicity of it and think that you can't not have an opinion politically with practicing positive psychology, that you can't still be an activist. It's just that you do it with a positive mindset. You know, I can still have an opinion about what's happening. It's just that I don't bring other people down while I do it. The difference between the protesters at that parade are that I don't believe that those people are in line with positive psychology principles. I believe that there are people probably that same day who are maybe doing something active for what they believe in for the same cause, but they were doing it from a positive psychological standpoint, if that makes sense. You can still be political, you can still be an activist, you can still actively help the world and be doing it from a can-do, positive attitude that is collaborative and helping without trying to point out the negative. So I think thinking about like just those old adages of if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. Like if you leave a play or something and you're like, ugh, I really didn't like this, can you point out what you did like instead? Can you start showing appreciation for what you found to be good instead of looking at the things that you found to be negative? Because we are judgmental creatures. We look for the negative because it's out of a pattern and we're humans and we have, you know, a negativity bias and, you know, all of these things in our brains that are looking for things that are out of pattern so that we're more likely to survive. But we don't really need that as much anymore. So if you can see something that's out of your pattern and security base and it's not threatening, and just be like, it bothered me that this was happening in this performance. And it's like, who is that helping that you need to report on that? If you say that out loud, it's only going to hurt someone's feelings. So what if instead you report on the good things that you saw in that play? Wouldn't that be much more uplifting to see? I think that sometimes we really get into this mode of like, if I don't make a press release about all the negativity that I saw today, I'm a bad person who will just be this, if I don't blow the whistle on every little thing that I see, I'm not calling out corruption. And it's like, I don't think that you are. I think that there are levels to corruption. Like if someone is being harmed, I think, yeah, maybe. yeah. And also maybe expand and be clear about what your idea of being harmed is. Is it not getting a coupon at Kohl's for Kohl's Cash? Is that really being harmed? Or can you just let that go? Can we expand our idea of what harm is to physical, emotional abuse? You know what I mean? How much of the day have we just decided is worthy of whistleblowing? I feel like we need to calm down a little bit and just be able to let stuff go. We have just become so aggressive with what are problems, and then when we don't quote unquote report on everything, we think that we're a bad person, but it's like, it's because we have decided that everything is a problem, but it's not. So positive psychology, I think, is more about if you can't say something nice, then allow yourself to not say it or flip it to something that's good. So negative situations being reframed in positive psychology, you have to get in line with your morals, your values. And it's like, you really can't be the whistleblower for everything. You have to trust that there are whistleblowers out there for specific things. You know what I mean? Like there are some things that are really high on my value list. And if I see something going on with that, damn straight I'm going to whistleblow. But you can't be the whistleblower for every single area of life. You have to kind of let some stuff go. You really do. You can't be hypervigilant in every area of life. It's just impossible. Let stuff that applies to you be there and the things that are really high on your value list. And then you got to just let other people that are in line with their passions focus on the rest and just trust other people. We have become so hypervigilant and non-trusting of others that it's doing a disservice to all of us. And negative situations being reframed is part of affirmations. It's also really beneficial to yourself. So when you can do that outside of yourself, then you are able to bring it into yourself. It starts to naturally happen with yourself. So if you feel like, okay, I saw this thing outside, and instead of me focusing on the stuff that I didn't like, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm not going to complain about that, because even though it was kind of annoying to me, it was irritating, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's not hurting me. I can just kind of let it go. Not everything is going to be my cup of tea. And instead, I'm going to try to say 2 things that I liked about it. I'm going to find 2 good things about it. How can you do that with yourself now? When you have that negative self-talk, when you have those thoughts of like, oh, God. Like this morning, I was at a doctor's appointment and I had eaten a muffin and I had it all over my face. I'm a messy eater. I really am. I have no idea where my mouth is. I think it's part of the proprioception, but I don't know. It's really bad. And I didn't wipe my mouth. And I went into this doctor's appointment and 3 people didn't tell me that I had stuff on my face, which I think is rude. But regardless, when I went to the bathroom, I realized that I had a muffin all over my face. And I thought, there's an immediate voice in your head, the first thought that's like, you asshole, you know, like there's just an immediate thing that's in there. You slob, like whatever. That happens. If you think that like people who practice self-love, who practice positive affirmations, who have been doing this for 10 years, still don't have that initial thought, you're wrong. We all do. We all have that little inner voice that's judgmental. I catch it, and I choose the second thought, and I'm like, that's okay. And I laugh, and I'm like, ugh. There's that feeling of why? And then I have a thought about them, about being like, what is wrong with you to not tell me, right? And then I have to catch that thought. So now I have to do 2 thoughts for each one and be like, okay, they didn't want to say anything to me, and they didn't want to worry that the other person hadn't said something, and maybe they thought it was a mole. I don't know. They didn't want to comment on bodies because they don't want to be politically incorrect. I don't know. Let it go, let it go, let it go. And now you know that you're a messy eater. Matt thinks it's funny. Let it go, let it go, let it go, and wipe your mouth. Let's move on with the day. What's the worst thing that can happen out of this? It's already happened. It's done. There's little moments like that happen all day, all the time, and we can't let it derail the entire day. We really can't. I know that's really small and trivial. It literally just happened this morning. But my point is that we don't really outgrow that initial voice of a low level of shame, you know? It's just there, and it's there to teach you stuff. It's there to get you to do that and to get you to evolve, for me to remember to wipe my mouth, you know? And positive psychology isn't, I don't think, the way that I feel about it anyway, it's not here to say, well, never not wipe your mouth, and also never completely ignore the voice. Like, I can't do anything about that first voice. I really don't know what to do about the fact that it's there in the first place. I think it's biologically in there. And I'm not ignoring the fact that the world has negativity in it, and I'm not ignoring that I have things that I want to work on. Negative situations being reframed for me is, okay, if I think that wiping my mouth is such a problem for me that it's causing me anxiety, then it's time for me to make a goal. It's not, but there are plenty of goals that I have. There's a goal, like I mentioned, I'm making $100,000 a month and I'm so grateful. I don't put something on my wall without an action plan. So I meet with my team every week. I have actual plans and goals and tangible steps that are outlined of things that I do every single day that I'm working on making that happen. Recording this podcast is part of that. It's a part of an outreach and a touch point and a way that I connect with my audience, which is you. Thank you for listening. I just want you to understand that, like, negative thoughts being reframed is kind of like, okay, I know what I don't want, which is to not be broke. So now what is it that I do want? Knowing what you can't do or what you don't want is helpful. It is helpful as the first step, but it's not helpful to just stay there. And I think that is the difference between the people who are protesting at that parade and saying, we don't like it that you're not helping, so we're going to let you know that you are bad. And then saying, okay, we know what we don't want, so what is it that we do want? Okay, well, let's make a list. I know that I don't want to be broke, so what do I really want? I'm going to dream big here. I want to make $100,000 a month. Now, how do I get there? Okay, let's make a list of how we get there. All right, those people. All right, we really don't want people celebrating this parade because it feels obnoxious because there's people suffering. Okay, so what can we do about that? We can help in the ways that we can. And instead of wasting 3 hours letting other people know what they're doing is wrong, let's create an outreach program. And this is how we're going to get there. If my mom doesn't like the fact that I'm holding up a sign that says honk if you believe in Santa, then she can go out there and hold up a sign that says honk if you believe in Jesus. You know what I mean? If you don't like, and this is where we get into passion and make what you want, what you wish to see. in the world. There's a difference between trolling, which is what my mom and those people are doing. That's just commenting on other people's work and saying, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. Negative situations, negative comments. And then seeing what someone else is doing and saying, I would do that totally differently. Great. We need your perspective as a merriment maker. We need your passion. We need your unique, creative, weirdo lens. So tell me, how would you do this? You wouldn't have a parade today? Okay, what would you do instead? Go make something happen. You wouldn't hold up a sign during December because you believe in Jesus? Okay, then go hold up a sign. Go recruit people for your thing. Go do it. Stop talking about it and make shit happen. You don't want to be broke? Go make some money. That's positive psychology. It's not what can't you do, not what you don't want. It's tell me what you do want. Tell me what you really, really want, Spice Girls. That's positive psychology. And sometimes, yeah, you have to lie to yourself to get yourself motivated with affirmations and hype up jams. And it's about solving problems. It's not when you really get into it like this and you can kind of look at it from both sides here. And I'm trying to look at it from both sides. I'm just so, I am on the team, obviously, of positive psychology, but I guess I'm trying to show you that it's not this like sunshine rainbows kind of thing. It's done from a practical, pragmatic manner. And it's only dangerous if you're using these things to not solve problems. It's only dangerous if you're using things to solve the problem of filling a hole in yourself where you don't know who you are. If you haven't figured out who you are, what you want, and not what you don't want, but what you do want, then yes, positive psychology can be dangerous because what you're doing is using anything, whether it's positive or negative, to numb yourself. If you're only focusing on the positive, then yes, it will be toxically positive. If you're only negating negative situations so that you don't have to worry about what's going on in your life or the world, then yeah, it's going to be negative. But if you are focusing on the lack of problems in your life because you have eliminated them almost fully, and you keep reframing negative situations because you have figured out how to solve problems, because you now know exactly what you want and how to get there, and the thing that's working is lying to yourself on the way to achieve those goals, oh man, sorry that your life is getting better. And yeah, so the 5 principles of positive psychology are positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. And I go into those more in my Merriment Mondays about positive psychology principles. And you can listen to that whole episode. And there's fears that come with each one. You know, everything that you do, every evolution that you have, every step that you take requires discomfort. And sometimes our discomfort actually comes from leaning into something positive. We're actually really familiar with the negative, really familiar with it. The world's full of it. You're going to find that it's actually a lot more difficult to take on a positive attitude, but having a positive attitude is not bullshit. One of the things that changed my life and continues to change it is exposure therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. Do you feel like that is toxically positive? I mean, it's one of the hardest things I ever did. I had to like do things that made me bawl my eyes out and have panic attacks, but it was a problem solve. I don't know. I think that you can focus on the good and build that skill. And that's not something that demonstrates a lack of intelligence or naivety. Please try to consider positive psychology and focusing on what you can do and not what you can't do, figuring out what you do want instead of not just what you don't want, and not talking shit. I love you. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you want to rate my podcast, that would make me really happy. I always forget to ask people to do that. You can rate and leave a review. And I think you can even leave comments now on Spotify, which would be really cool. Okay. Oh, and Merriment Mondays is live every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And there's now also some really cool pep talks that are available for purchase on uncustomary.org. So come on over and check out these really cool pep talks. They are the first thing that I've ever released that are like my spoken poetry, and I'd love to share them with you. I'm really, really jazzed about them. I hope that you enjoy them. They are a different kind of creativity that I have shared. So I love you, and I'll see you next time.